listening to The Cooler Ring, a podcast made for manufacturing marketers. Here are Carmen Perry and Jeff White.
Welcome to The Cooler Ring, a podcast for manufacturing marketers brought to you by Cooler Partners. My name is Jeff White, and joining me today is Carmen Perry. Carmen, how you doing, sir?
Well, I was seconds away from sneezing there, I thought for a moment. This is going to be an unmitigated podcast opening disaster.
Yeah,
But it seems to have passed. I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking.
You let me know if it comes up again. I'll hit the mute button as quickly as possible.
Indeed. And how are you?
I'm doing great.
Nice.
For those who don't know, we were a little unsure this podcast was going to happen. We ended up rescheduling a few times originally, and then Nova Scotia got hit by a hurricane over the weekend. So we're just glad the office has power and internet. So because otherwise this was not going to come off.
Indeed. Special hurricane edition.
Yes, the post Fiona cleanup. So. But I'm looking forward to our guest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've one of the, ongoing, I would say, debates in the world of sales and marketing, particularly in the manufacturing industrial space, through the pandemic has been how much are we losing by not being face-to-face? How much is face-to-face required? Certainly it was a sector that operated largely in person pre-pandemic. So I'm kind of interested to catch up with today's guest and do so post IMTS, which is like one of the biggest face-to-face shows on the calendar for the category, and just kind of see what are we thinking about that now.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, this also ties in deeply with the notion that we keep talking about of, the importance of customer service as a tenet and an arm of your marketing and sales apparatus, in terms of keeping things flowing. And I think this plays into that too. And I want to get into those topics as well.
All right, let's do it.
So joining us today is CJ Brey. CJ is the Director of Sales and Marketing at PF Markey. Welcome to the Cooler Ring, CJ.
Thank you both. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, actually to speak with both of you. I think those are some interesting topics we're going to broach this morning. So thank you. Good to be here.
It's awesome to have you on the show, mate. I wonder, could we maybe kick this off by telling our listeners a little bit more about the company and what you do there? Just fill us in.
Sure. So I'm coming to you guys this morning from our brand new sales and marketing locker room. So it's an actual live setting. I've got guys coming and going. Each have a desk, have a locker set up, and we kind of use this as our team environment. And I set up the backdrop here behind my desk, sit-stand desk, to do just this thing and get more involved and more engaged with people all over the globe to kind of have these conversations and bring to light kind of what we're seeing. So PF Markey is a professional CNC tooling management and application firm. So we do everything from sell the actual cutting tools, but more importantly lately, collecting and analyzing the data behind those for our customers. So we'll manage the entire supply chain side of it, but then we also really heavily focus on the data and the analytics to help drive the metrics of the business or our customers' business in the machining environment. So we have an outside sales organization, we have a marketing organization, and we cover, a good portion of the Midwest, but we're heavily engaged at the manufacturing process level with each customer that we work with. We want to be part of the manufacturing process with those people. But again, we're in the sales and service industry, so that is our main focus when we go to work every day.
Very cool. And tell us a bit about yourself as well.
So I have a storied background. I had about a 15-year career with 3M, kind of on the sales and distribution management side. I worked and managed key accounts, territories, and then at the end, our channel partners, our distribution partners. Left that organization in 2018, went to work for a startup manufacturer who had a whiz-bang product, right? We all have a customer from time to time where we're like, wow, that's a really good idea. And I just had one convince me that it was worth jumping ship and trying to help grow the rocket and or build the rocket. And it was a truly tremendous opportunity. We had a lot of fun. It was a company called Swift Wall, and they made a temporary wall panel for construction sites, primarily the airport transportation industry, where constantly have tenants changing. So we built that from the ground up, had a lot of success there. COVID was obviously very disruptive to that. We lost some people, but from there I left. Always been good friends with the owner here at PF Markey. Their organization was growing and expanding, and they were looking to branch out and build more of a sales um, digital online organization, and just add that layer of management and leadership to their sales and marketing organization. It's always been a very mom and pop, although large distributor, looking to really expand that side of the business. So that's how I got engaged over here almost a year and a half ago now. So yeah.
Man, you've got me confused because I'm thinking about, you just mentioned kind of bringing a more digital presence to the to PF Market, et cetera, and you mentioned about what the firm is doing in terms of the data analytics and whatnot. It all seems very digital forward, shall we say. And frankly, I got that impression when I go to the website as well. Customer videos, et cetera, being brought to the fore there. Um, but I thought you and I were going to be talking about how this was all about just meeting face to face and getting rid of the computer.
Well, I think, the interesting part in today's world, right, is your first impression, your first introduction is digital 90% of the time. Nowadays, our new customers want to meet us digitally, learn about us, get to know us, in some cases, trust us before they actually talk to us. We have a bunch of initiatives to help that occur authentically and as genuine as possible. But that is all in an effort to get to that face to face, which I think everyone's craving, but is hesitant to accept that first time meeting, or that knock at the door, if you will, to let somebody in. If you don't have that digital awareness or that digital presence that people recognize and are familiar with, platforms like this where they've gotten to know you a little bit, I think it's really hard. Yet they on the flip side want that real person to answer the phone. So it's an interesting balance. That's to say the least.
Do you think that's how have you seen? I mean, this is the silly question that we have to get out of the way before we get into the good ones. But how have you seen that evolve since the start of the pandemic to now?
Oh, I think it bridged the generation gap, right? Where you might have had some resistance to it, we now have everyone forced into it. So I think you had the younger generations really adopting that early in their relationship building, just amongst their peers, and building those relationships and communication talents, skills, more or less digitally. You forced everyone in the chain of the company on up to learn how to do that. So everyone up to the owner now is engaging digitally. So I think COVID unfortunately helped that happen much faster. But it also gave everyone access to everyone a little bit more. I think we're all now on the LinkedIn side getting a little bit tired of the sales pitch via the private message, right? But right after
the immediate one that lands the second you hit accept.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That was awfully quick. But the reality was, right after the pandemic, right. I guess in the pandemic, you could message somebody on LinkedIn, and that was a unique way to communicate, and somebody would respond. I had a number of meetings that I set up when I first got to PF Markey 18 months ago. That was a preferred method. Now, I get no response. And that, frankly, I don't respond to anyone unless I really know them either via LinkedIn message. It's crazy to see how fast it's evolving and what channels people are using to communicate.
So, but you are thinking it through the lens of they need to meet us digitally first, you said. And of course that meeting is still going to be happening. One assumes LinkedIn, Twitter, or whatever platform you choose, and then eventually you're going to be trying to make that transition to in person. I appreciate that you don't want to be just sending the first message to say, "Hey, why don't we have a meeting and talk?" But I guess so. I'm trying to get a sense of how disciplined and widespread this approach is in the organization. Like, do you have an initiative underway that says this is how people are to meet PF Markey digitally? This is how they're to meet us, and knowing that eventually it's getting to an in-person. Can you take me through the anatomy of that?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question. We haven't formalized it on a sales side, and that's not 100% accurate. I don't have the account managers with a plethora of digital resources in which they use for outreach or use for building awareness per se. What we've done at PF Markey is try to build the content library online as best we can in the short term that I've been here, of our customers who are telling the story about us, our leadership telling the story about who we are, talking about our process, allowing people, giving people a channel to do their own research. On a more formalized process, what we also did is we launched kind of a marketing campaign around a digital video brochure. So it's basically, I'll grab one, basically a folder, right? And without giving away all the good juice, you open it up and a video automatically starts playing. We record these independently and privately to each one of our, I would say, key pursuits, the guys that we really are trying to build that relationship with. And that comes right from our CEO. It's a custom message to the person we're trying to reach. And it's usually based on a reference we've already received or on some information we already knew going in. It's not 100% cold, but it's not hot. It's kind of that warm lead. We intentionally do that from a leadership level to build that bridge. Once the bridge is built, then we bring in the account manager. But, we're trying to encourage, people use their LinkedIn and their social platforms. We're trying to encourage, reaching out via those platforms. But I'm not enforcing it. I'm not saying, hey, this is the process you should use. We're still in an industry in manufacturing where, that's new. We're on the front edge of that. And it's not necessarily that effective. The reference is still the best way, to have somebody call somebody else and then to follow up on that call. But what we're seeing, like at IMTS this year and at the IBC conference last year, and some of these other, or ISA, conference last year, is people have seen us now. They know us, they know our name, they know our logo, they know the logo, they recognize that stuff. So that's the small bridge that hopefully the digital presence is building to help that introduction happen in person, or at least mean something in person.
I like the idea of driving that initial connect almost as high as you can in the organization.
Yeah.
Of course, you have that. Maybe some would say you have that ability given the size of PF Markey versus some other companies may find that a little bit more difficult to scale. But at the same time, I don't know. Maybe that's just an excuse too.
I should be shooting for it.
Well, I like how it it cuts through a bit of the noise, doesn't it? And it shows that the prospect's business and attention is actually important to the organization. It's got to go a long way.
It does, and the target customer really is that on the flip side as well. God love the big three here in Michigan. They drive a lot of business to the state and they employ a lot of people. That strategy, that method of communication isn't going to work. It's not going to do anything anywhere. That's just like somebody going out and cold calling and knocking on a door they've never been up to. We're really trying to connect with those that are doing the same thing we're doing, just in different shoes. They're small, mid to medium, sometimes large, privately owned companies where we can get right to the person who owns it, the person who's in charge of operations decisions, that's trying to move the numbers themselves. And that's really where we're having the most success. It's that where we know we're going to get face-to-face value from those relationships, because you got to have that. You always will have to have that. The flip side is the data side. How do we measure that impact of that relationship, what we're doing for those people? But we have to be able to show that data to somebody who's going to care. We can move the profit line, but it's somebody in the purchasing side or someone that doesn't have a whole lot of concern for the bottom line, we lose that connection. Usually we want to have the entire team on the customer side that we can have involved that makes the decisions happen. So it works pretty darn well.
Yeah, I'm sure there's just I'm trying to kind of understand what you do and what you don't do. We just mentioned about the LinkedIn kind of cold call sales in mail. That's on the list of don't do's. I guess what other stuff do you see happening in the space where that seem to be running counter to this notion of more personal and in-person service that you are trying to deliver? Like I'm trying to think of like chatbots as an example. Increasingly ubiquitous. Man,
you mean AI isn't necessarily intelligent?
Well, live chat. Lots of track record of success with that, right? And it's a way of delivering on this exact kind of same message digitally, largely. So, yes, give me the do's and don'ts. What are some stuff you see out there? You're like, we will never do that as long as I'm in this role.
Right. Yeah. Gosh. Well, and that changes day to day because I'm like, yeah, let's try that, and then I'm like, ooh, that did not work at all. So here's a prime example: Zendesk software, great customer service platform software. It's the infamous ticketing system, right? You send your email to a generic email address, and anyone on our customer service team can grab it. From our side, that's awesome. We have a small team of customer service. We want them to be highly responsive. We want them to be on top of everything that's happening, no matter who calls in and we pick up the phone, we can see what's going on with that customer. However, on the customer side, they're like, I just want to work with Noel. I don't want to send my email to inside sales and get an automated generated response that says, someone has your issue. Here's your ticket number. We'll be back in touch soon. Very impersonal, very insecure feeling on the customer side, somewhat confusing. Well, is it happening or isn't it happening? And when can I expect a response? So I kind of see there being a lot of these, like the chat box, a lot of these double-edged swords. You want to be as highly customer focused and customer service oriented as you can. And there's a lot of tools and resources out there, but are they really what your customer deems as customer service? I used one over the weekend, a chatbot, and I realized that I was very quickly realized I was talking to a computer. I wasn't going to get the answers that I needed. So now I have a bad taste in my mouth for the chatbot. And so when I see that the next time, I'm not real excited about using it. So do I want to put one on my website? I do, because I do think that a lot of the market expects to have these different avenues to communicate with you. And if you don't have one, it's like, how come they don't have one of those chat box? I don't want to write an email. I don't want to make a phone call. I just want to text with you. And it's got to be, I think, a little bit of a marriage between all of them. And you have to be able to hit zero quick, where you do have those systems and those processes. So to answer your question, I'd say I want to always be default human answering the phone, human making the call back, human writing the email, human handling the issue, and having the customer know who that human is. So yes, send your email to inside sales at customer service. However, Noel got the ticket. Noel's phone number is this. If you need anything, please call Noel, and actually have Noel make some sort of customized response. I don't know, it's balance to get back to that person, right? Without giving too many steps to either side in an interaction. Because everybody wants it to be fast and quick and easy, but personal, which is.
Are your digital marketing efforts bringing in too many junk leads? Stop wasting time and distracting your sales team. Account-based marketing can help give your marketing strategy the laser focus on qualified buyers that you need to increase your pipeline velocity, close more deals, and grow your business faster. We've created a sample manufacturing ABM plan to help you get started. Download the sample manufacturing ABM plan at bit.ly/sampleabm. That's bit.ly/sampleabm.
Well, that's the promise, right? Like, it's the promise of marketing automation. It's the promise of service automation. It's the promise of chatbots and everything else. I think the key there with most of that technology is to not kind of play hide the weenie and pretend that it's a real person until somebody figures out that they're talking to a bot, and simply say, like, you're talking to the PF Markey customer success bot, like, this isn't going to be like talking to a person, but we'll get you to one as soon as possible. So I don't know.
Yeah, I like that notion of being able to hit zero. Notion, we all know what that means. Well, those of us who have actually been on a telephone. But which is
getting to be
yeah.
The rest of them want to talk to chatbots. So if you know what zero means, and where it will take you,
you say that in jest, but honestly, part of I think a way a lot of people would look at this would be to say it's a bit generational. Mm-hmm. I think that's a bit of the easy way out, though.
Oh yeah.
There are probably just as many 57-year-olds that like at least I have a throat to choke now. I have a ticket and I can tell them how long they've screwed up. That'll be really helpful for me. There's those people exist, and they exist when they're 23 too. So I wonder, like, it's not generational isn't just the only
differentiator.
Yeah. So I like the notion of, okay, build out these services, allow people to hit zero quickly in whatever kind of context that makes sense in that. And, that makes sense to me. And then conversely, it also makes sense to me to have something on the site that says, we don't have any damn chat bot. We don't, we don't
will talk to a real person, but it might take a little longer.
Or somehow turns that into an advantage, right? Like want to be almost obsessively and unapologetically in person.
Yeah,
could be an interesting strategy if people actually called it out rather than just allowing people to hit zero.
Yeah, but now we're strategizing in the room, and we should never do that.
Yeah. What do you think?
I agree. I can see both sides of the matter. We deal with a lot of people, a lot of companies, and it's easy to drop a ball. I mean, some of these implementations that we do with the cutting tools, we can have thousands and thousands of UPC codes. And, one customer order can be 50 lines. There's got to be a way to track that information. We got to have that information in a system where we knew when it came in, we knew what was being done with it, and we know where it is now. It cannot be a post-it notepad anymore. But I think you can provide the opportunity to anyone to speak to a person in your organization and make that channel very apparent that it's a real person situation. Hey, they might be out to lunch. They might be on vacation. You might get an automated reply to their email if they're not here, but somebody's going to get to your information if maybe you go down this route or if you take this method. But your person cares about you. We care about you, but they're a real person and we're real people running the business. So if you don't want to use the automated system, maybe there's a way to do that and do both.
Yeah, I mean it certainly speaks. We were chatting just a bit before we started recording here about your experience at IMTS a few weeks back and just the different strategies that different manchoirs were taking to being back in person, whether that was how you folks
some opting out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Choice. Yeah.
So I guess what did you see there? I mean,
so I'll have to, I'd love to expand on that because I have to kind of put this out there. This was my first IMTS, so I haven't been there prior. It was not something ever that I thought I needed to be at, and I'm really glad I went to this one. And for those who weren't there, I didn't notice, and I think that's a problem. If you're a major player in the market, or even a small player in the market, and this is the largest, manufacturing show on this side of the hemisphere, in this hemisphere, I don't think not being there was a good decision, because it really, I think, more than selling products, brings an energy to what you're doing and is an investment on your part to the industry. It's sending a message ultimately, all the way from the guys who have matching tennis shoes, jerseys, and serving beer to their customers, and manning a booth with 20 people, to the guy who's just barely able to afford a 6-foot table in the back, right? It's sending a message. Who's investing? Who's moving the needle? Who's trying to move the needle? And then again, the opportunity to meet people in person. I talked to a lot of manufacturers. We have 2,000 lines. I've narrowed that down to a core of like 15. And I meet a lot of them regularly that are from this area, but I don't meet the guys that are on the email chains, that are higher up in the organizations. And I don't see every product that they talk about. And I don't see the breadth and depth of their capabilities until you go to a show like that, and you dedicate time out to focus on that. And so it was interesting. I honestly understand how complex and expensive or how large of an investment it is for these people. But on the other side, I don't see how you don't do that. I mean, I think that's going to be whether the shift is in the future. You're going to see, I think, more of that happen, because I think that's where we're getting the time and attention back. People, I think, are losing that sustainability of the relationship when it's not in person. Where the more times you meet somebody in person, the better and stronger your relationship is, the more sustainable and longer lasting it becomes. That is still true to this day. And I think you're going to start to see a shift back to that. And I think COVID was just obviously the other end of that spectrum. it's easier to break up if you haven't seen somebody in a long time.
I think this is really interesting to think about, this notion of, because everybody thinks about it kind of heading in one direction, right? More and more digital over time. But kind of what CJ's telling us here is that is driving a fragmentation of both attention and interest in engaging digitally, that it's almost causing a kickback to engaging personally, and that will never go away because we're humans and
we have no
kinda need to do
choice.
that.
Yeah.
As not to go too far down the road of Mark Earls and the book Herd, but we're super social apes who do what we do because of each other, and we're going to continue to want to do that in person. That's interesting to think about, CJ.
I think there's a fulfillment in what you do day to day. Obviously, we all spend the majority of our time, those of us who have to working with our profession and the people around us. And if those relationships aren't deep and authentic, I mean, very quickly lose interest and I think enjoyment. Right? People want to be excited about what they're doing. And I think a lot of that just comes from the interpersonal relationships, whether or not that's a professional issue or personal matter. When I know something about the guy that I work with and what his family's up to, whether it be camping or sports or his love for power boats, whatever it is, right? It adds that layer, and that layer adds, I think, a texture, a strength to the relationship that goes beyond. It's the age old saying, small gifts build relationships or create relationships, large gifts cement them. It's this idea that being with these people and knowing more about them than maybe I could learn digitally just because they share personally gives me a confidence and a security I can't get online. And therefore, I know the relationship's stronger. It's going to last longer. So if I didn't get to meet you at IMTS, you're toast.
I think it's funny though, because as someone who's worked a lot in the tech industry and things like that, yeah, but how does it scale? Yeah. Oh wait, you just add more people, and with each of those, you get more accounts.
Yeah.
Better serviced.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
It's not infinite.
It does come with some complexity. It's fair to say.
Yeah, and where are the people, right? That's the problem.
Yeah.
This model works wonderful if I can find people.
That's a very, very interesting point in this day and age, in this kind of labor market. Maybe we need to hit delete on this episode. This whole in-person thing's going
nowhere.
Yeah, we're screwed.
There's no one to put in those positions.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, an uphill battle. And Elon Musk talks about the population deterioration over time in sheer volume. And that becoming an issue. And my hope is that it's just evolution at this point, where we do have this population of people working remotely and kind of a gig style economy. But that when given the opportunity, like at an IMTS show or just even the local, coffee shops that seem to be popping up everywhere, that people can get together to build those relationships. Hopefully it's just an evolution and not truly the opposite, which is all digital.
I don't think it is, because it's interesting when you look, if we do go down the road of generational analysis here a little bit, we'll see that, younger generations are not living a life that is exclusively digital, as much as people like to suggest that they are. And in fact, they're, showing a greater interest in in-person connectivity with friends, et cetera, and deepening those relationships in kind of almost kind of ways that seem almost old school by comparison, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that there's a there. I don't think we're going down a road of having a bunch of folks that work remotely and never actually want to see folks in person. It's just that they don't necessarily maybe want to work with people every day in person or see the utility of it.
Yeah.
No, I think, there's definitely a giant efficiency movement that we're going through. I was home last week, COVID again, right? But I got as much done and did as much in a couple days at home that I would do at the office. But I was also able to tackle a few other things that have been nagging me for a long time, and it was super helpful to the family life, our home life, and it was in between two calls. So I do agree. I think that there's,
The COVID productivity bump.
Yeah, it totally was, because I didn't feel that bad, right? Because I've had it who knows how many times. This was technically the second, but I work on the road a lot and I work in the office a ton, and that being able to work from wherever now with the capability that we have, I mean, I do believe that's we're going to be a more productive society and a more well-balanced mental society.
Yeah, no question about that.
Look, let's wrapping this up. I'm just curious if you're kind of looking into your crystal ball 3 to 5 years from now. What do you think the biggest challenges that you need to solve for if we're looking out that far? Where's this all going?
That's a great question. I think that it's attracting and keeping talent and maintaining a successful organization. I think for us in the sales and service industry, it's hard work. I mean, you have to put in a lot of hours. You have to be on the road a lot. You have to be behind the phone or at your desk a lot. And it's probably not the most glamorous of jobs. I think you can get really into it. I think you can get passionate about it. We have a young guy who just turned 30 who's been in it for 5 years, but it took him all of 4 years, 3.5 years to become a strong value add partner to his customers. It took him a long time to learn that business. And there's always going to be that need of somebody who's technically sound in our industry, regardless of the product, regardless of the operation. And somebody's going to have to invest in that person for a while, and that person's going to have to stick it out for a while. So I think it's attracting and retaining and training good people to do what I think possibly was more expected and or seen as the norm before, where now the options and opportunities and awareness, like I was telling my son just yesterday, I mean, we watch YouTube, we watch Instagram, we watch Netflix. I mean, the availability of what's possible via information is everywhere. My son sees more things that he wants to do when he grows up than I probably ever saw or knew about or could do. And so somebody who's going into, sales to sell drill bits watches the wrong YouTube video, I'm going to lose them. Because, I'm really more passionate about, engineering mountain bike frames like my son wants to do. I don't want to sell drill bits.
Your son and Jeff need to talk.
Yeah, we're
we've had this conversation, and that's I think that the hard part is there's a lot of jobs out there that aren't as flashy and fun and as exciting, or pay as much. I mean, we can only afford to pay so much, and I think we do a pretty good job at it. But it's going to be keeping those people around, keep them involved.
Yeah, I would find it very hard to disagree with any of that. I think it's going to, if it's been a challenge in the last 2 years, just wait.
Yeah. Words of encouragement.
But it's an absolute pleasure to kick this subject around with you, mate. Thanks for coming on the show.
Likewise, guys. It's been a pleasure of mine. It's cool, and I enjoy following you guys.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah, keep it up.
Thanks for listening to The Cooler Ring with Carmen Perry and Jeff White. Don't miss a single manufacturing marketing insight. Subscribe now at KulaPartners.com/The Cooler Ring. That's KULAPartners.com/The Cooler Ring.